Welcome to Right On with Tom Fallwell, a bi-weekly podcast focusing on interviews, novels, reviews, and upcoming releases from indie authors. Now, here's Tom.
Hello everyone and welcome. This is episode 11 and our featured guest today is author Matt Cole. I'll be talking with him soon. We have a couple of book reviews for you this time and a reading from something special which I'll tell you about in a moment. Before we begin, here's a message from one of our great sponsors.
Hello, I'm Kay Gantus from Author Assist. I'm a freelance writer and author of 8 books and over 35 publications. I have been in this business for over 25 years and I'm proud to call myself an indie author. However, being independent comes with a lot of responsibilities that take time, skill and experience, all of which I have. And for this reason, I now offer my time and experience to other indie authors. My services include, but are not limited to, virtual assistance, social media consultancy, marketing and promotional management, blog tours, event and party hosting, setting up and the promotion of Head Talker and Thunderclap campaigns, branding, logo design, narration, book trailers, newsletter and sign-ups, bookmark design, teaser and banner design packages. All permanent positions and services come with regular updates via video meetings or phone calls. Even when our arrangement has ended, I'm always around to give advice and answer any questions that the author has. If any of these services interest you and you'd like to discuss them further, then please get in touch with me via Facebook at Kgantus Author Assist or email kgantusauthораssist@gmail.com. Samples and testimonials are available on request. I look forward to chatting with you.
The big news I have this episode is that I'm finally releasing my latest book, Dragonblood Throne Legacy. This is the first book of a planned series with a sequel planned in the near future. There's no big cliffhanger, so this first book tells a complete story on its own. This story originally was published back in 2014 as the novel Dragon Rising. It was my very first full-length novel, and I was just getting started in this new career as an author. Needless to say, I made many mistakes. I've learned a huge amount since then, and with my Rangers of Lorien series and trilogy now published, I believe I've finally developed my own storytelling style. I've also learned the importance of beta readers and editors and felt it necessary to take this story and rewrite it. Dragonblood Throne Legacy is the story of an orphan, Delina, who grows up alone in the forest, living a life of isolation. Her only companion, a saber-toothed panther. Her strange eyes frighten those she occasionally encounters, so she keeps to herself until a young, wounded warrior ends up at her doorstep. As she nurses him back to health, she discovers she is more than just a young woman with unusual eyes. She is a dragonblood, destined to become the ruler of Almar. Now hunted by the dark sorcerer who murdered her father, usurped his throne, and killed all her kin, she must find out how she can release the essence of the dragon inside her to defeat him. Everything depends upon her willingness to embrace her legacy and reclaim the dragon throne. The book launches on August 5th, 2017, and is currently available for pre-order through Amazon and other online outlets. I also have a special gift for anyone that pre-orders the book and provides me with their proof of purchase via email to author@tomfallwell.com. As a thank you for ordering, I will send you a special edition signed ebook of my first Rangers of Lorien book, A Whisper in the Shadows. This special signed edition is not available for purchase, so check the podcast page for the link and pre-order your copy today. As a bit of a preview, I have an excerpt from the book in a reading for you. This excerpt is from Dragonblood Throne Legacy.
Ignoring the 2 scribes fidgeting nervously behind him, Karkoth anxiously watched the cosmic tableau of the moons unfold in the darkened sky from his balcony. The rare lunar eclipse was only moments away from its apex, the new moon phase of Tybalt almost centered within the bright ring of Cianur behind it. While he would never admit it, not even to himself, Karkoth was fearful as he waited to see if the prophecy was true, if there would be a sign indicating a dragon blood still lived in Almar. The words of that prophecy played continually in his mind as he waited with bated breath. Ring of the heavens, ring shining bright, darkness the lesser, then greater moon's light. When the ring glows bright, as the moons above turn, blood shows the sign of the dragon's return. A dragon reborn from an innocent child, the power will grow as emotions run wild. The dragon will rise when all hope seems lost, all evil will pay the dragon blood's cost. The dragon blood comes, the darkness will die, the dragon's wings spread, and the dragon will fly.
Here it comes,
Karkoth said, never removing his gaze from the moons.
Now we'll see if there is any truth to this prophecy.
The scribes trembled, fearing their High Lord's wrath, as Tybalt firmly centered itself in front of Cianur. The light in the night lessened momentarily as Tybalt covered much of Cianur's full and bright splendor. The slim circle of light around Tybalt began to burn brightly, becoming a brilliant, glowing ring in the night sky. For a moment, the scholars hoped that perhaps the prophecy was false, but a red glow began to fill the darkness of Tybalt. It was as if some celestial being had poured a bowl of blood into the mold of the darkened Tybalt, now glowing with red, unearthly light. The eclipse became a white circle filled with a blood-red glow. The prophecy was true. It was a sign of blood. A dragon blood. The scribes slowly backed away from the balcony in fear, anticipating the wrath of their lord. They could almost hear Karkoth's rage brewing inside of him as he suddenly turned on them, his steel eyes boring into their souls.
It's true. That beast Geraldine had another child.
His anger turned on the two robed figures.
You should have known this sooner, you impotent Cretans.
He raised both hands in front of him, palms outward. The terrified scribes turned to run, but it was too late. A dark, fiery energy streamed from both hands as jets of black, searing flame engulfed the two men. Their horrifying screams of agony echoed throughout the chamber and into the halls beyond as their bodies were consumed by a deadly power Karkoth had loosed upon them. Within seconds, only smoldering piles of ash remained on the floor. Dropping his hands in frustration, a deep and tortured frown peeked from the shadows of his hood. Karkoth stormed toward the throne room door.
Guards! Guards! Get my generals, now!
Whoever this dragon blood was, Karkoth had to make sure they never lived long enough to be a threat to his power. He would scour the entire kingdom and find this dragon blood. He couldn't allow one of their kind to live. This has been an excerpt of Dragon Blood Throne by Tom Fallwell.
Now I have a couple of reviews for you. The first is for a book titled Before You Leap by Les Lynam. Before You Leap is most definitely a book I would recommend. I had a great time reading this book. Right off the bat, I could see that it was going to have some very fun moments, and I was not disappointed. It is a great story for both young and old alike. There are some great antics and miscommunication between the main character, Sean Kelly, and his future relative that make this a fun and exciting read. I was actually laughing aloud at some of the interactions and found the book had just the right amount of suspense and drama to keep me moving along with anticipation. It also gave me some in-depth reflection on relationships and emotional processes as Sean struggled with the situations he endured throughout. This book is a fantastic, fun read for readers of all ages and for readers of all genres, but it is definitely aimed at sci-fi lovers. Even so, the fun and suspense will please most any reader. I highly recommend this book, and I'm definitely going to continue reading the series. This next review is for Wielders of Arantha, Book 1, Pawns, by Patrick Hodges. Wielders of Arantha is a series that I plan to follow very closely. Book 1, Pawns, is one of the best books I've read in the past few years. It was an engaging and exciting read, and I enjoyed it immensely. The author knows how to pull the reader in with truly wonderful characters that come alive and grab your attention. This is the author's strongest achievement, characters that I, as a reader, actually cared about. The action is done extremely well, not too much, not too little. It is intermixed with the story progression in a very balanced way, and when the action appears, it carries a well-written air of excitement and anticipation for what happens next. In fact, the entire story pulls the reader along for a magnificent and thrilling ride. I found it difficult to put down, and if I did, I was anticipating picking it back up again to read more. All in all, this is a really great book, full of the things that make reading fun. A perfect blend of science and fantastical elements that puts it squarely in the science fantasy genre. I very much look forward to more of this series. The author has a fan, and I'm happy to say I've found a new favorite. If you love sci-fi, fantasy, or both, this is a book I believe you will enjoy tremendously. You'll find links to both of these books on the podcast page. I encourage you to check them out. Now here's another message from one of our wonderful podcast sponsors.
Are you a new indie artist looking for a way to market yourself? Maybe it's time to go indie now. Go Indie Now is an online platform that highlights, fosters, and supports indie artists of all art forms. Our shows on YouTube do everything they can to bring an audience to what you're doing. So head on over to goindienow.com, find our channel on YouTube by searching Go Indie Now, all one word, and remember, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you there.
I have with me today Matt Cole, who is a
Hey, Tom.
developer and has written I don't know, is that fantasy or paranormal book?
I would say it's more like a paranormal sci-fi.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. So let's talk with Matt today, and I'll start out by asking him just what is it that led you to become a writer?
Well, I have to tell you, my background has basically been healthcare. And I was a rad tech initially, and then I converted over to the dark side for information technology. And I've been in healthcare IT for almost 20 years. But I have always had a love of books and reading books. When I was growing up, I couldn't get my hands on enough of them. As a small town, small library is before the internet. And since that time, I didn't even think I was going to even write. I never even pursued it. But here in the last year or 2 years, what I've noticed is that a lot of people are actually able to kind of circumvent the publishing distribution and create their own information and their own works and everything, and then submit them up to the Amazon, for example, for publishing on distribution. So anyway, I was started to look into these conventions and other authors, and I started asking questions. And I specifically was seeing that this was an alternative way for me to A, enjoy some writing time to provide some stories, information to the populace, and also B, to maybe even create some revenue on the side. Since I'm so busy with my primary job and kids and family, it would allow me to work on it on my own time. But mainly, I just love to give information out and assist other people, and now I'm going to try to do it through stories.
Yeah. What you said you did a lot of reading. Was there any particular authors that were your favorites?
Well, I can remember specifically Robert E. Howard. I was big into Conan, and then was able to go into some used bookstores and actually get some original Robert E. Howard books and his poems and stuff. That's some pretty dark stuff. And then I always loved fantasy with Piers Anthony, with the Xanth novels and all that as a kid. And then I moved into basically a little bit of everything, primarily fantasy, sci-fi, and then now it's primarily nonfiction, to be honest with you.
That's interesting. Conan was one of my launchers too. I've read almost everything on that. The Sight and Sound book that you have out is, you said it was paranormal. Can you give us a little bit of detail or a little blurb of what the story's about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you asking. So basically the synopsis of the book is, I view it almost, Tom, like a primer. And what I've done is I've been always fascinated with the paranormal and the veil, per se. And I've always obviously been fascinated with technology. So the idea of it is, how can we incorporate technology to break through the veil? So I have some main characters. One of them specifically has the ability to hear the spirits or interdimensional entities, whatever you want to call them. And I introduce him as always having that ability and assisting detectives and police. And he's basically kind of thrusted into the new character, which is a gamer, actually. And he basically acquires everything that he's built for the gaming, specifically virtual reality, into those type of gaming scenarios, becomes a big player. But what happens is, not to give up too much away, but what happens is the individual creates a VRD goggles, and by an accident, he starts to be able to see beyond the veil, these entities. And I put these two characters together, and what they end up uncovering is there's an actual war that's occurring that they didn't know before. And so they basically have to, A, work with their talents together, and B, to assist any way that they can through the spiritual war.
Okay. Are you a gamer yourself?
I've always been a gamer, Tom. I remember when I was younger having Pong as a tournament with the aunts and the uncles. A lot of people may not even remember what Pong is, but I remember very well Atari 2600 and the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. I had a buddy of mine before marriage, and what we would do when Blockbuster was still alive, on the weekends, we'd grab a 2-liter soda and go to Blockbuster. And he had a Sega system, and I had a Super Nintendo. We picked the best games and played all weekend.
Did you ever get into role-play gaming?
Into what kind of gaming?
Role-play? Like Dungeons and Dragons? Or
no, unfortunately. I only attempted to do Shadowrun when I met up with a group of people in the local area. And that was for a little while, but RPG, I just never had the ability to get with a group or anything on a steady basis to do that.
Have you done any of the virtual, with thinking about these new virtual reality goggles and everything? Have you used them?
I have not. I've seen them, and I know they're going to become more and more popular, especially with the augmented reality that's coming into effect and all of that.
What's that about?
Well, the augmented reality, if you look online, that's where everybody's kind of going towards. And the idea with augmented reality is that you see your physical around you, but then it's also tapping into the internet or another system to provide you information on top of it. Google Glasses kind of was doing that initially when it was talking about it. You would walk down the street and you could pull up Google Maps. So ability to identify where you're at and where to go and all that. And that's kind of actually what I was tailoring into with the book Sight and Sound with the VRD goggles.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Was there something that kind of pushed you towards writing? I mean, you talked about finding out that you could publish without having to go through the traditional publishers. Was there a particular reason you wanted to avoid them?
Not a particular reason to avoid them, but I know, too, that with the changing landscape of the technology that's available, I don't want to say that the publishers are gatekeepers per se, but in a way they are. And if you're not accepted by them, then your work and your information will never see the light of day. And that could be a pro and a con with the ability for people just to upload whatever information that they want, or whether it's bad or good quality. But at the end of the day, I think the customers are going to decide, and they'll go back to those particular authors as providing that material.
Mm-hmm.
As far as something that pushed me toward writing, I had a prior friend that did it for an actual lifestyle. She actually was able to do it for her family and pay all her bills, and I thought that's pretty interesting. So, like I said, I was initially asking her certain questions, and I started looking into it. And the ability for me to do it on the side, outside of the normal work and the family and everything, was one of the allures that I had for it. And what I generally did was I kind of dipped my toe into it and just put in a couple of technical books, like utilizing IFTT or utilizing RPG Maker. And I actually seen people purchase it. I guess when they say you see somebody buying your stuff outside of friends and family, you're getting somewhere, right? So I thought, well, maybe I can actually do this. And I knew that there was going to be a bigger playing area in novels, the regular fiction stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been into technology and paranormal. And actually, I'm writing another book right now, and it's going to be a little bit darker than the current Sight and Sound. I think I want to make that title a trauma. And what it's going to be, Tom, is a psychiatrist. And what he's going to be is going to get involved with a certain patient, and he's going to have to identify and see what's wrong with this patient in order to help her. But what's going to be occurring is that patient is actually possessed by an entity. And it will, at the end of it, actually tie into one of the or two of the characters in Sight and Sound.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So what my goal is I'm actually creating this world of Sight and Sound. And my following books will be an offset in a way, a standalone, because a lot of people don't like series per se or get started in a series. But my goal is to have standalones, but also have the ability to tie into the same type of characters in the same world.
Mm-hmm. Well, in getting this first book done, Sight and Sound, did you have people helping you, like editing or somebody with good sage advice that you needed?
Absolutely. In fact, the first book that I even attempted to write wasn't even in the same genre, and I just totally failed. But
don't
you learn
feel bad.
Fine. And I'll tell you this quick story. This is a true story. So when I originally created this initial book, I had my wife read it. So I'm sitting over there on the side of the room watching her, thinking, wonder what she's thinking. And she starts yawning. And she goes, there's nothing happening yet. So that kind of told me immediately that book was happening.
What
we learned from mistakes. Well, it didn't happen because I had a tendency to drag things out initially. Mm-hmm. And my idea was provide history and a background of it, but most people just want action and a little bit more verbs. So, I just kind of prepped that, went through that, and I had a lot of friends that would initially, kind of read it, give me some input and everything, and it was it took me about a year, actually. It was actually work, Tom. I hate to say it, but writing is actually work. I was thinking I was going to do it on the side and knock this out and be done with it, but I had to actually use a couple of neurons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that. Coming from a technical background myself, I had a tendency to provide too much detail, which my editor initially started pointing out to me right off the bat.
Well, that's how they end up. They want detail in our jobs, right?
Yeah.
Who, what, and why. You don't give them enough detail, they'll ask more questions, but definitely not that way in novels.
Is there any particular element of writing a novel that you have found that you tend to be more focused on? like dialogue or character development? Or...
Well, to me, I love the character development. And then honestly, it's still kind of fluid. I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a prime example. Prime example is the initial Sight and Sound that I created. I had an idea, a framework that I wanted, but I didn't know how it was going to end, per se. And so it took me a little bit longer to create that structure in the book and then actually make it fit together. Now, this next one I'm doing, learning from the prior one, I'm actually creating a framework first. I know how I want to make it to end, and I know how it's going to begin. And then I'm trying to dot out the chapters, per se, and then the information within those chapters to make it more fluid. So to me, and it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I truly just enjoy the creation piece of it. The character arc, as far as how the character is going to be developed and how it's going to interact with what's being put to them on the scenarios and stuff. And I'm more fascinated, and I'm actually really hoping for to get a following, not so much as, to say I have X amount of followers on my Facebook page, but more so is, did you get anything out of that material? What did you get out of it? Because I'm trying to put in Easter eggs for them as well by applying specific real information, real world information.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to, they could look into it a little bit deeper and actually, learn something from them.
Yeah. What you're wanting to build then is more what we call a beta reader team.
Well, I have some people that, well, I don't know what you'd call it, to be honest with you, Tom. I just would love people to read my stuff and actually at the end of it say, that was okay, that was good, and feel like they chewed on some meat, as opposed to candy.
Well, I mean, I
want people to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all want readers and people that read to review. It's very difficult to get someone to actually review, though. But
absolutely.
One of the trends I've noticed is a lot of people are building what they call street teams, where they just gather people together that want to read their books, and they help promote their books for them. So they read them and tell other people about them, and it just kind of seems to be a good way to word of mouth advertising to get it out there. I've
heard of that, Tom. Yeah, no, I've heard of that, but I've also heard that like those companies like Amazon are starting to crack down on it, because what they're finding is, of course, they're changing their algorithm in the background and saying, okay, John Doe has put in a 5-star for author X on every one of them. There's something fishy here.
Yeah. No, that depends. Most of the people I've found to be mostly honest. I know there's some that aren't, but for the most part, most people I've met on Facebook, if they give me a review, they give me an honest review. So
that's great.
Yeah, they can be found.
Well, but it's interesting you bring that up, because I agree totally. That's one thing that I've found when I'm talking to these other authors, just kind of digesting what they're telling me on these conventions and stuff. They find the same thing. And in fact, one went as far as saying, if you find a valued beta reader that will consistently read for you and tell you the truth about what they read, that's gold. That's very rare.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's one thing I didn't have in the beginning that I've learned to build up is people to beta read, and people that I trust to read and be able to let them read the book and tell me what they thought, so that I can make any last minute changes, and that becomes almost invaluable.
That's everything that I'm hearing too. Yep.
Yeah. Is there? What have you done as far as personal appearances? Have you been going to conventions or book signings or anything like that? Actually,
this was currently being recorded on June 20th. My very first book signing is this week scheduled. It's a local bookstore that has really adopted local authors. And in fact, he has actually made a specific section for local authors and promoting as such.
Mm-hmm.
I never have done, similar to this conversation, I've never done one of these before, and I appreciate your time on it, but I've never done any book signings before either. So this week will be an experience for me in more than one ways. But my hope is that I'm actually going to continue and go to some of these local conventions.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter writes as well. It's both of us are kind of on this path together. Her obviously much more younger than I. And it's interesting because she wants to give away all these quote unquote swags and stuff. And I told her, I said, I'm a poor author. I can't give everything away. but it's starting. You know, like I said, it was a couple of years ago I made the initial tech book. This year I put out the Sight and Sound for the novel. And you got to start somewhere. So slowly but surely, I'm hoping that it'll become something good.
You can actually sell the swag at the conventions, from what I understand. I haven't actually been to a convention yet myself, though I'm planning on it. But I know some people that do, and they sell their posters and swag and all that.
If they own the I've seen that as well. I mean, I've gone to a couple of conventions with my kids, and specifically anime conventions. And if they own the copyright of their covers, they're definitely able to have a 9x5 or a poster, and they'll sign those and sell them accordingly. Yeah,
and not just, I like to get character artwork done, character portraits and stuff. That there's plenty of people on, like, what is it called, Fiverr, that you can get to draw character portraits for very low cost. And you own the rights to what they draw, so that's a pretty good deal.
Well, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, get with me after the show here, and I'll give you some names if you want.
Sure.
But this second book that you're working on, do you have any idea when it will be?
I plan on going to a paranormal convention in October at a local area, and I want it done prior to that for sure.
Okay.
Just to let you know, as a little bit of background, I know everybody's busy, but just to give the audience an idea, I'm work full-time. I've got 2 children. I got one in college. I'm actually assisting her in her classes. And I'm also working toward a master's degree in IT at the same time.
Okay.
So,
got a lot going on.
Got a lot going on, and that's always the way it's been for me. But I plan on having it prior to October, and in fact, I would love to have it completed by September or August.
Yeah, you're in the same boat as many indie authors. I know plenty of them that have children. Some of them are even single parents, juggling that and work and writing. But I guess I got lucky there because I didn't start writing until I retired. So I get to spend all the time I want on it. So.
Well, the question then is, Tom, do you actually spend it? I mean, people will wish for that time, but do you actually...
Not as much as I should, probably. I do other things. So. But, well, I'm going to have links to your books and everything on the podcast page to your Sight and Sound book. We'll have a link to your Amazon author page. Is there anything that you want to tell us that might be coming up, events you might be on Facebook or live events or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. What you can do is you can go on my website. I've got a main website, just mattcole, mattcole.us. But I also have a sub-website that I created primarily for my author information, and that's author.mattcole.us.
Okay.
And what I have within there is a now page, and I keep up on that particular page and all the upcoming events and everything on what I'm currently working on. That's one way that the audience can actually keep up with me. And another way is through Facebook page on my author page, which is facebook.com, but real simple, author Matt Cole, AuthorMattCole. And I'd be happy to you guys reach out to me and say, hey, I'll reply back. And that's another means just to kind of keep up with me on the events that's coming up for me.
Okay.
But love to hear from everybody.
Yeah, I know what you mean. One more thing. Being that you're active on Facebook, have you been involved with author groups? And if so, have any of those been a real help to you?
Yeah, actually, a couple of them. Been on, I can't remember off the top of my mind which ones but what I found I end up doing, Tom, is initially I go out there and peruse, and there is some good information out there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people put the same information over and over, and after a while you kind of get the idea of who's doing what. But then as you get more busy with actually creating your story, you're on those pages less.
Yeah.
But definitely there's a few of them out there that I've posted inquiries and got really good results and feedback from. That is one thing that I found with the author community is there are many out there that are more than welcome to assist you and just kind of give their experience, which is great. And I want to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's.
I found.
Go ahead.
No, I just a comment. I found like there's two ideas of thought that I've come across thus far. One idea of thought is this island is so big and I don't want you on the island because you'll take up what I'm currently acquiring on the island.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few of those. And then the other thought is there's plenty of room on the island, and not only will I assist you, but, work together in order to make something better. And that's definitely the ideology that I lean toward.
Yeah. That's one thing I've always believed is we're not competitors because we're authors. We're not trying to compete with each other, because if somebody's going to buy and read your book, they're going to buy and read your book. And most of us probably don't even have the same types of readers. So it's just kind of a stingy thing to say, that I'm competing with you and your sales are hurting my sales. I just don't see that.
I totally agree, Tom, but I'm just saying that seems to be the two that I've come across.
Yeah. Well, Matt, I want to thank you for being with us on this, my podcast show, and that's what it's all about, is helping other indie authors, and that's what I created it for, and I'm glad that you came on, and thank you for talking with us.
I appreciate you having me.
And we're definitely going to let everybody know where you're at and how they can get a hold of you. So,
I appreciate the time, Tom, and I'd be more than happy to do it again as I get more material out there as well.
You'd be more than welcome. Yes, sir. Well, thank you again, and stick around. I'm going to cut off here and be right back. C.G. Blade's pseudoverse novels are a sarcastic look into mankind's race to develop the first conscious artificial intelligence and achieve singularity. The problem is that most of the runners in this race are sadistic, hell-bent on destruction of DNA as we know it, and have a fondness for those missing a Y chromosome. Why, you ask? From cobalt to crimson to emerald, this is one wild, mysterious roller coaster ride as a hidden puppet master is slowly but surely gaining ground on humankind. C.G.'s newest novel, Onyx, goes back 26 years before Cobalt and explains the beginning of it all. Will humanity finally become steady? Tropa is all around us now as heliotrope starts to take shape. We hope you enjoy this little slice of science fiction heaven which fuses historical science fiction, satire, horror, and plenty of hidden Easter eggs along the way. Join us in liberating the pseudos from Pseudosynth Press Publishing. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and will follow the podcast. Just click the follow button on the podcast page. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to bringing you more in a couple of weeks. Until then, write on.